Okay, right then, so now recording the session so we can come back to this later. What I'm going to show you today is how you can use PKB and SystmOne so that you can identify in SystmOne easily who your PKB patients are. Okay, to do this, you're going to need coordinator access to SystmOne, so that's usually the practice manager, and obviously, sorry, coordinator access to PKB, get that right, and also you're going to need access to SystmOne. In the meeting chat, I've dropped 2 PDFs which explain what I'm doing, and that's the PDFs I'll be referring to as I go through this. So if you want to be able to do this, go into the meeting chat and you can download the 2 different PDFs that are there. First one sets up the patient groups, and the second one tells you how to create the report that then puts the icon on to SystmOne. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen.
Sorry, Sam, just to let you know, those PDFs we can't download them because we haven't got access to your SharePoint.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's annoying.
You heard me when I told you that.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
I'll get them sent out to everybody afterwards, Sam.
Okay, then that works better. I do apologise for that. Right then. So I'm going to share my screen. Screen 1. And if I go to right, so I'm in SystmOne now, and what we're basically going to be able to do is this is our test patient. And I know she's a PKB patient because we've put this icon up under a status alert markers, which is still long enough on my mouse, sorry. PKB patient. That's what I'm going to show you how to set up so that you can easily see your PKB patients are. So I'm just going to minimize SystmOne for a moment. I'm going to bring over PKB. So currently I'm logged in as the coordinator, which, as I said, is usually your practice manager at each practice, but you'll have more than one because you should set up more than one coordinator. What I'm going to do is I'm going to export all the patients out of PKB that we've got into a CSV file. To do that, I'm going to go to the institution tab, and I'm going to go to the consent sub tab here, and I'm going to download the contact details. It will ask me where do I want to save my contact details, and I save them to desktop. Now I've already done this one earlier in true Blue Peter fashion just to make sure it worked, so I've already done that. So I'm going to minimize that, and I'm going to bring my CSV over, and this is the CSV it creates. I've widened the columns out already so that we can see what we need to see. Now the actual information, all that SystmOne needs is the NHS number. But before we give it to the NHS number, we're going to make sure that the ones we're going to give it have actually got an email address. So first of all, I'm just going to get rid of all the data I don't need. And I'm literally just going to right click, delete the columns, delete the columns, and delete the columns. Now what I'll be looking for is anyone that's got a null in their primary email address, because if we haven't got their email address, their PKB account's not active. And the fastest way to find that, if I highlight both columns, will be to sort the columns. So if I go to sort and filter, I'd sort it smallest, I'd go custom sort, I'd sort by, they have got surveys. So I'd sort by column B, primary email, cell values A to Z, and then I'll be looking for the null section, and I just delete all those by selecting them. Once I've got rid of my null ones and I'm just left with the NHS numbers of the ones I actually want, one thing you do need to be aware of, now I'm not sure how much of the problem this is because I don't understand how the NHS numbers work, but if the NHS number starts with 0, it will drop the 0. So if I type 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, oh, I've already set it so it won't. It will drop the 0. You'll just get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You will need, I don't know if that's a problem now because I don't know if NHS numbers start with 0 at all, but if you're having that problem, you will need to set the format of this column to include the 0. To do that, and again, this is in the PDF, you highlight your column and you go to more number formats and you set a custom one And where it says general here, what you put is 0 and then 9 hashes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It will now allow numbers to start with 0 if they do. Once I've got all that, I'm ready to import this into SystmOne. So I'd save it. It's ready to import, and then I'd close it. Come back to SystmOne. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import those patients as a group. So I'm going to go to reporting, miscellaneous reports, and an ad hoc patient list. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to import a CSV. Okay, because I'm already selected in a list, I'm just going to say no for that because I'm actually already in a list because I tried this out a minute ago. Import CSV, and it's going to ask me, or it should be asking me, which CSV do I want to import? There it is. So I go find my CSV. It's complaining because it won't complain with yours because the numbers we've got in the PKB don't exist on this SystmOne. But it'll say, so I'm going to ignore that. And then I'll have the list of the ones that are in. And the only patient that it's been able to match up is Rose Thomas. So what I'm going to do now is click Save Group. Do I want to create a new group or add to an existing patient group? If this is the first time you've done it, you create a new group. If you've done this before, you create an existing group. And the advantage of using groups is if there's a duplicate, it ignores them, which is something that you can't do if we do this via the recodes. It adds the recode on multiple times. So just by putting it in a group, we won't get duplicates. So I'm going to go existing group, PKB patients, and it tells me they've been successfully added or removed from the group. So it's updated the group. Okay. So now that they're in the group, what I need to do now is make a report that will search for the group and bring back the icon for PKB, the PKB, which is in the second document that you've got. So go to reporting. Now, obviously, I've already set this up. So go to my clinical reporting. Okay. PKB patients in group. I've already got it set up, as you can see. So if I show you how that looks, if I go to amend. Okay. So I've done a given it a proper name, put it in a proper group so we can find this easily. And it's under registration, caseload team groups, restrict a patient group, and you go select the group. So I can select the group there. There it is, PKB patients, all done. So once I've got that, say OK. And then we can set, just as you do always here, you set the status alert icon to run off that report. Okay, so let's run the group. I've accidentally closed the document I wanted. Bear with me a second, I do apologise. Where's my document's gone? I've just accidentally closed it. There you go. Right, sorry. Okay, so that's where I was at. So now to create the status alert marker, I do apologise for that. It's setup, data output, patient status alerts. Okay, and you make your status alert that you want. So new patient status alert, give it a name, category status marker, what icon you want, description, trigger type is clinical report, and then you go find the report that you've set there. So you put the report in, okay, select your output when triggered, show icon and how you want it to appear, a message if necessary, and then click OK. And that will set all that up for you. Okay, and that's it. And once you've done all that, all your PKB patients will have the icon on their status alert. That's it. I know that's a lot to cram into because I've gone through the thing. That's why there's going to be a PDF coming to you, because I don't expect you all to remember all of that. But that is essentially it. From there, you'll be able to identify your PKB patients. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Does anyone have any questions? So with this doing on a regular basis, you will need to import the spreadsheet from PKB on a fairly regular basis. But once you've set up the status alert marker, it's just a case of updating the group once a month or so. So yes, it will need to you will need to keep doing it, but it will take into account anyone you've already got in there duplicated. It won't create any problems from duplicates. Do you have any other questions? Okay. Karen, do you have a list of who's attending so you can send the documents out? I'll forward those documents to you and then you can send them out. Do you have a list already, or do you need people to put their email addresses in the chat?
I do. There's just one person who I'm not sure who they are, and it's Jane. So it hasn't come up with a surname. So if you're able to put me your surname, please, in the chat, Jane, that'd be great. And which practice you're from, then I'll be able to find you.
Is it not going to be sent out to all practices anyway?
We can also put it on the Connected Knots site as well, Monique, for anybody who's missed the session.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Sam?
Yes.
Sorry, unless there's any other questions, just to make everybody aware that also on the Connected Knot site, last week's recording will be on there as well quite soon, and we'll get this one on there just so you've got something to look at, as well as the PDF. We've got a message about that potentially going on TeamNet, so that's something that we can look into putting something on that as well, if that works. Just to give an update, possibly something that might be useful on the integration side of things and the work that we're doing with integration from PKB into either SystmOne or EMIS. There is some work that's happening at the moment. We're just in the process of doing some testing. But the use case that we have been looking at is to get questionnaires or questionnaire results from PKB into the clinical systems. Currently, that will be in PDF form. So if, for example, a patient at your practice completes an asthma questionnaire, what would happen then is that would get sent to your PKB as it normally would, but also that would go to the documents inbox on SystmOne, and a similar thing on EMIS, and that would come through as a PDF linked to that patient's record. So it'd be a case of reviewing the results that come through, updating the template or however you record the results of an asthma sort of consultation, and then filing that to the patient's record. So rather than having to go into the patient's PKB record, it'll come through into your clinical system straight away. So there is some testing that's happening with a couple of practices, which is happening over the next couple of weeks. So we do imagine that we'll be ready to roll that out to practices at some point in March. I'm hoping from early March, but we're just going through that testing process at the moment. I see that Jane, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hi. I don't know if you've actually answered the question already, sorry. Is there any, where Sam, you recommended that, say, I don't know, we run this search monthly and import the new PKB patients into SystmOne. Is there any plans for this to happen automatically? Was that what was just being discussed? Sorry.
So at this point, sorry, Sam, in terms of the development side of things, what's being worked on is that integration work, and looking to get results from, or questionnaire results from PKB into the clinical systems. This is definitely something that we I think should be looking at in terms of getting something a bit more automated, rather than having you guys having to do that on potentially a monthly basis. I think at the start, as patient registrations are building up, it'll be something that's more useful for you at the start. It still would be good practice to do that regularly, but eventually you'll get to a point where there'll be less and less patients registering for PKB or claiming their records through the NHS app because they'll already have registered for PKB. So we do expect the numbers that you're adding to decrease, just because a lot of people will have registered through the NHS app or directly through PKB. But yeah, it's something that we'll take back and look at what we can potentially do to get that a bit more automated, just so you don't have to go through that. The reason that the NHS team, so Sam and his colleagues, have looked into a solution for this is because we did have a couple of practices that were looking to send out asthma questionnaires to patients. And initially, whilst we were going through the process of doing the training with them, it turned out that what would happen is, because at the start they didn't have that many patients registered for PKB, they may have, say, 10 patients in a month that required an asthma review. And for those 10 patients at the start, maybe there was 2 or 3 patients registered for PKB. So rather than having to go to all of those 10 patients' accounts to check if they've got a PKB account, which could be done through the single sign-on, what you can do through this is you can find out which of those patients have got a PKB account. So rather than clicking on 10 and finding 3, you can click on the 3 straight away and send those questionnaires out. So it's just, what we found is it was just taking up a bit too much time, and we didn't really want there to be trial and error to work out if they've got a PKB account. There needed to be an efficient way of being able to tell who's got an account. And that's been used successfully at other practices. For example, Middleton Lodge, where the staff at the practice were contacting patients about their flu vaccinations. And I think the plan was possibly to give them a call as a bit of a reminder. But what they found is sometimes that might take a couple of calls if the person was unavailable for any reason. So because they saw that these patients had a PKB account, they were able to actually send them a message via PKB, and the patient picked it up through, I think, either PKB or through their NHS app. So that's how it can be used, not just for asthma, but going forward, if there are any occasions where you need to contact patients, that could be an efficient way of doing things. So, sorry, Sam, back to you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I guess we'll call it a day then. Next week, I'm going to be showing you how to activate single sign-on. So straight from SystmOne, you can go straight to their PKB account without having to log in over and over again. So hopefully you'll join us for then. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely weekend.
Thanks, Sam.